The harmattan that morning was unusually sharp, so sharp that the cold wind carried a kind of warning, the kind that settles on the skin long before the mind recognizes danger. It was Christmas Eve, a day that should have begun with laughter, early cooking, and the warm excitement that fills every home before the season fully breaks open. But in the small village of Omoh, dawn broke with a silence that did not feel like silence, it felt like waiting. And inside a narrow clay hut, lit only by the pale orange stripe of sunlight slipping through the raffia window, two sisters slept without knowing that their lives were about to be divided forever. Adaku, the older one, woke first. Something had startled her. Not a sound, not exactly. It was a presence. A subtle heaviness in the air, as if something unexpected was sitting somewhere in the room, watching. The kind of heaviness she normally felt only during funerals. She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. Her sister, Obiageli, lay curled up under a wrapper, breathing lightly. Everything seemed normal, until Adaku noticed the door. It was slightly open. That door had been bolted from inside before they slept. She remembered pushing the wooden peg into place herself. A slow shiver crept across her arms. She stood, cautious, toes cold on the smooth floor, and moved toward the entrance. The wind had pushed the curtain aside, so she thought. Until her eyes fell on something just outside their doorstep. A sack. A brown, dusty sack tied at the mouth with an old rope. A sack that had not been there the night before. A sack large enough to hold a human body. Adaku froze. The breath she took tasted like fear. She nudged her sister awake. Obiageli, she whispered, wake up, look. Obiageli blinked, irritated. Hyan, what is it? Why are you waking me this early? Her voice stopped, her gaze locked on the sack. The two sisters stared at it, silent, stiff, expectant. The village slept on, unaware. Who kept it there? Obiageli whispered. I don't know, Adaku replied. Should we call Mama? Mama traveled last night, remember? She won't return till evening. A long moment passed. A moment filled with possibilities they feared to speak out loud. Stolen goods. A trap. A curse. Or worse, a gift no one asked for. Obiageli stepped back. Adaku, don't touch it. What if it is something evil? But Adaku. Adaku's eyes were filled with a different kind of fear. A fear mixed with curiosity. The kind that makes people lean closer to danger while trying to convince themselves they are being careful. She stepped forward. Adaku, stop. Obiageli hissed. But it was too late. Adaku crouched, her fingers trembling slightly as she touched the sack. It was cold, unexpectedly cold, as if it had been sitting under a running stream instead of on dry ground. She loosened the rope. The sack mouth opened slowly. And what spilled out first was not dust, not grain, not old clothes. But light. A glittering, trembling cascade of colored light. The sisters gasped. The floor flashed with blue, gold, ruby, emerald, stones shining as if each carried a trapped sun inside. Diamonds, rubies, sapphires. Precious stones beyond anything they had ever seen or imagined. The sack was full of it. Overflowing, pouring, scattering across the clay floor like a river of riches. Obiageli covered her mouth. Jesus! Adaku, where did this come from? Adaku's heartbeat thundered. She had seen rich women wear gold. She had seen wealthy men donate gemstones during chieftaincy ceremonies. But this was not wealth. This was temptation. What are we supposed to do with this? Obiageli stuttered. Adaku didn't answer. Her eyes were fixed on the stones, like someone seeing her destiny for the first time. And then. A sound. Soft. Uncertain. Scratching. It came from the dark corner of the hut. Both sisters turned sharply. Something small moved near the wall. A rat. But not an ordinary village rat. This one was too big. Its fur too dark. Its eyes too still. Almost intelligent. It watched them. Watched the diamonds. Watched the open sack. Then it stretched its neck out and let out a sound, something between a squeak and a warning cry. Obiageli screamed and jumped onto a stool. The rat didn't run. It didn't flinch. It simply turned its head slowly, as if listening to a voice the sisters could not hear. And then it rushed forward, straight toward the diamonds. Adaku grabbed Obiageli's hand. "Don't move." The rat climbed onto the scattered jewels, sniffing rapidly, pushing some aside as if searching for something hidden beneath the glitter. Then, it stopped. Its body stiffened. Its back arched slightly. And it looked toward the door. At first, the sisters thought someone was approaching. But there was no shadow outside. No footsteps. No sound. Just the rat staring, as if seeing something they could not see. Then its mouth opened, slowly. And a sound came out. A low, trembling cry. A cry that did not belong to any animal on earth. And just like that, the diamonds dimmed. Every stone shifted from bright light to dull glow, like flames snuffed out by an unseen force. Obiageli clutched her chest. "Adaku, something is wrong. This thing is not ordinary. These diamonds, this sack, this rat." "I know," Adaku whispered, voice breaking. The rat stopped crying. Its body jerked once. And then it ran, fast. Disappearing through a hole in the wall. Silence dropped again. But this time, it was not silence. It was a warning. A heavy, waiting silence. The kind that comes before tragedy. Adaku swallowed hard. "Obiageli, something brought this sack here. Something that hasn't shown itself yet." Obiageli's hands shook uncontrollably. "Adaku, we must tell someone. We must tell the chief." Adaku turned to her slowly. "No," she said. "No one must know. Not yet." "But, why?" Adaku stared at the sack. At the half-dimmed stones, at the door that had opened itself before dawn. And her voice dropped to a whisper. "Because whatever is coming back for this sack, is coming tonight." The wind outside rose suddenly, howling like a voice warning from a distance. Christmas Eve had begun. And so had the nightmare. The village of Omoh woke slowly that Christmas Eve morning, but the sisters could not join the rhythm of people pounding yam, fetching water, or preparing for evening festivities. They sat inside their hut, trembling, watching the sack from a distance as if it were a living thing. The diamonds no longer sparkled with the same brilliance. They were still beautiful, but dimmer, like stars covered by a thin shadow. And the rat's cries still echoed in their minds. Adaku paced the room like someone expecting an unseen visitor. She checked the door, the window, the corners. Obiageli followed her movements with fearful eyes. At last, she whispered. "Adaku, do you think it will come back?" Adaku did not answer immediately. Instead, she stepped to the doorway and looked outside. People were laughing. Children were chasing each other around a mango tree. Women balanced bowls of rice and spices on their heads. Young men polished their motorcycles, preparing for Christmas visits. Life was happening normally. But in their hut, normal had ended. "There is something wrong with these stones," Adaku finally said. "Something very wrong." Obiageli hugged herself, wrapper tightening around her shoulders. "What if it's a trap?" she asked. "What if someone dropped it to accuse us of theft? Or to curse us?" Adaku closed her eyes. "I don't know. But I know one thing. A sudden thud outside interrupted her. Both sisters jumped. The sound came from the side of the hut, near the window. Something, or someone, had brushed against the wall. Obiageli grabbed Adaku's arm. Adaku, what was that? Adaku moved carefully toward the window. She lifted the raffia mat just enough to see outside. A man stood near their hut. Tall. Dark. His back turned to them. Wearing a long brown cloak that reached his ankles. He wasn't moving. He wasn't talking. He just stood there, facing the forest path. As if waiting for someone. The sisters exchanged terrified glances. Obiageli whispered, "Does he know about the sack?" Adaku swallowed hard. "I don't know. But, look." The man's right hand twitched. Then, slowly, he lifted his head toward the sky, as if sniffing the air. Not like a human. More like an animal searching for a scent. A cold ripple ran through Adaku's body. Something told her this man had not arrived for Christmas celebrations. Something told her he was connected to the sack. Connected to the night. Connected to the rat. Obiageli's voice trembled. "Adaku, we need to hide the sack." Adaku nodded sharply. "Help me." They rushed to gather the scattering diamonds, pushing them back into the sack with trembling hands. The gems were cold, colder than before. As if each stone had been kept inside ice. The cold bit into their fingers. Obiageli winced. These stones, they feel dead. But they hurried through it, tied the sack tightly, and shoved it under their mother's wooden bed. The underside of the bed had a hollow cut in the mud floor, a small storage pit where their mother usually kept old pots and calabashes. They dumped the sack inside and covered it with clay bowls, wrappers, and a torn mat. By the time they were done, nothing was visible. Nothing except the fear in their eyes. Adaku whispered, "Whatever happens, don't say a word about this to anyone. What if they ask? Then you tell them nothing." Obiageli nodded, tears in her eyes. Another thud. This time at the door. Loud. Firm. Too firm for a casual visitor. The sisters froze. A pause. The thud came again, 2 knocks, slow and deliberate. Obiageli backed away instantly. "Adaku, no, don't open it." Adaku's hands trembled as she moved toward the door. But before she reached it, a voice came from outside. A deep voice. A voice that felt like it didn't belong to a human throat. "Is anyone inside?" Adaku's heart slammed against her ribs. The voice came again, deeper this time. "I am looking for something that was left near your doorstep at dawn." Obiageli clamped a hand over her mouth to keep from screaming. Adaku stood frozen, unable to step forward or backward. She had never heard this voice before. Yet somehow, it felt familiar. Like the echo of a dream she couldn't remember. The man spoke again. "Open this door. I will not ask a third time." Obiageli grabbed her sister's hand, begging with her eyes, shaking her head violently. "Don't open it." Adaku whispered, "What do we do? What do we do?" The man exhaled heavily from outside, like someone growing impatient. "Sisters of Omoh. I can smell what you are hiding." Obiageli whimpered. Adaku's knees weakened. The man chuckled softly. A low, smooth, chilling sound. "If you do not open this door, I will come in myself." Suddenly, they heard footsteps approaching. Fast. Firm. Human. Someone was coming toward the hut from the village square. The man outside stopped talking. His cloak shifted. And then, he walked away. The sisters listened to his footsteps fade into the forest path. A moment later, a familiar voice called. "Adaku. Obiageli." Are you people inside? It was Elder Nana, the village night watchman, carrying his walking stick. Relief washed over Obiageli. Adaku almost collapsed from the tension. They opened the door shakily. Elder Nana stood there, sweating, eyes darting around. Did a man pass here? He asked urgently. Tall. Covered in brown cloth. Adaku swallowed. Yes. He was here. Did he say anything to you? Obiageli stepped back, voice quivering. He said he was searching for something left here this morning. Elder Nana's eyes widened. His grip tightened on his stick. He stepped closer, lowering his voice to a whisper. Girls, lock your doors before sunset. Why? Adaku asked, terrified. Elder Nana looked around again, as if afraid someone was watching. Then he whispered. Because that man is not from our village. And what he is looking for. Has killed before. Adaku's legs trembled. Obiageli felt her heart drop. And as Elder Nana hurried away to warn others, the sisters realized. Night was coming. And whatever was searching for the sack was not finished. That afternoon, the air in Umuahia felt heavier than usual. Even the sun seemed dimmer, hidden behind a thin veil of harmattan dust. People moved with an uneasiness they couldn't explain, except the two sisters, who knew exactly why the village air felt wrong. Inside their hut, Adaku and Obiageli sat with their backs against the wall, listening to every sound outside as if danger were crawling toward their doorstep. A chicken clucked. A child laughed. A pot dropped in a neighbor's compound. Normal sounds, yet none of them felt normal anymore. The sack hidden under the bed seemed to breathe. Obiageli clasped her hands together. Adaku, do you think Elder Nana knows something? He spoke as if this thing has happened before. Adaku nodded slowly. Yes. And he looked frightened. Elder Nana is not a man who fears easily. Obiageli leaned closer, whispering. Adaku, what exactly do we do? Keep the sack till night? Or? Adaku interrupted in a soft, trembling voice. We must survive tonight first. A knock echoed on the door. Both sisters shot to their feet. Not a loud knock. Not a forceful knock. A gentle knock, too gentle. Adaku crept toward the door, pressed her ear against the wood. Silence. Then a voice, and the voice called again. My daughters, open the door. I brought you something sweet. Obiageli's skin prickled. No one in the village spoke like that. Adaku pulled her back from the door. The voice outside deepened slightly, as if the person was tiring of imitation. Open. Open this door. Now. Obiageli clapped her hand over her mouth. Adaku stepped backward slowly. The voice, now irritated, rasped. Must I repeat myself? Open this door before I. Footsteps, but not from outside. From behind their hut. Someone, or something, circled the building. The sisters stared at each other, terror widening their eyes. The footsteps dragged, then paused, then dragged again. As if the creature was pulling something heavy. A shadow moved past the window. Obiageli felt her knees turn to water. Adaku, what do we do? She whispered, shaking violently. Adaku scanned the room rapidly, searching for anything to block the door. Her eyes fell on the wooden table. Help me, she hissed. They dragged the table against the door, breathing fast. Then another sound came. A sound that did not belong to any human. From behind the hut. A long, slow exhale. Almost like the growl of a beast trying to contain its hunger. Obiageli burst into silent tears. Adaku held her hand tightly. We will get through this. Just stay quiet. Anne slapped the window suddenly. They screamed, covering their mouths instantly. The raffia curtain trembled as the unseen visitor dragged its fingers down the window, slow and deliberate. Then, the same deep voice, but this time, right beside the window. "Give me what belongs to me. Before nightfall. Or you will not live to see Christmas morning." Obiageli burst into loud sobs. Adaku pulled her close, shaking, whispering, "Quiet, quiet, please." The presence outside sniffed the air again. The sisters didn't move. Didn't breathe properly. Didn't think. They waited. Minutes passed. Maybe hours. Silence returned, but it was not comforting. It was the silence of a predator waiting nearby. Adaku finally whispered. "We can't stay here till night. Night will kill us." Obiageli trembled violently. "Where do we go?" "To the chief." Adaku shook her head. "No. The chief's house is near the forest path, where the man went." "To the church?" Adaku hesitated. It was a risk. But everything was a risk now. "We will go," she said. "But we must move before sunset." Obiageli nodded quickly. "But what about the sack?" Adaku looked at the bed. "At the hidden pit. At the place where their nightmare began. We carry it with us," she whispered. "We cannot leave it here, not if that thing knows its scent." Obiageli wiped her tears and stood, shivering uncontrollably. Adaku pulled out the sack from under the bed. The moment she touched it, it moved. Not much. Just a small shift. But enough. Obiageli screamed. Adaku threw herself backward. The sack trembled again, as if something inside it had awakened. A diamond rolled out from a small tear in the fabric, glowing faintly. Not bright. Not beautiful. A sickly, pulsing glow. Obiageli's voice broke entirely. "Adaku. Adaku, something is inside this sack." Adaku grabbed her hand. "No. Not now. We leave. Now." She tied the sack tightly, ignoring the heat that pulsed from within. Then she whispered. "We have only 1 hour till sunset. If we are not in the church compound before the sky turns red, then whatever is looking for us will find us first." They stepped out of their hut, gripping each other's hands, trembling. And far inside the forest, a whistle echoed. Low. Sharp. Triumphant. It knew they had moved. It knew they were coming out. And it was waiting, over Umuahia, as if the sky itself was mourning. People whispered in low tones, their voices trembling like leaves in harmattan wind. For the first time since the sack appeared, fear entered the village properly. Mamankiru's warning traveled faster than harmattan dust. 3 people had already collapsed after touching the diamonds. And one person, Uche, was still lying unconscious in the health center, shaking every hour as though something invisible was dragging him by the soul. But the strangest thing happened the next morning. A fisherman named Akim, who had been missing for 2 days, staggered into the village square barefoot and dripping wet. He wasn't supposed to be alive. He had gone to the river before dawn the day the sack appeared and never returned. People thought he drowned. His family had already started preparing for burial rites. But there he was, standing in the middle of the square, shivering violently, his lips blue, his pupils unusually wide. When he finally spoke, his voice sounded like 2 people speaking at the same time. "Don't take what wasn't spoken for." The villagers stepped back. Mama Nikairu looked at him and her face changed immediately. "Where did you go?" she whispered. He lifted his trembling hand and pointed toward the forest road that led to the old shrine, a place that had been abandoned for nearly 20 years. "A woman in white," she called me. Her face was empty. She held a calabash. She said the sack wasn't a gift. She said someone is being tested. A cold wind swept across the square. Children began to cry. The elders exchanged frightened glances. Mama Nkiru walked closer, her wrapper brushing the dusty ground, her voice low and urgent. Ekwim, did you see her eyes? His lips quivered. No. There were no eyes. Just white. Pure white. The villagers gasped. The omen had deepened. But before anyone could move, Ekwim suddenly grabbed his throat as if invisible hands were choking him. His knees hit the ground. Foam gathered at his mouth. His chest pounded like a drum. Mama Nkiru rushed to him, placed her hand on his forehead, and shouted. Move back. Everyone move back. The crowd scattered. Ekwim's body stiffened, and then, in a voice not his own, he whispered. The owner is coming. Then he collapsed, unconscious. Not dead. But not fully alive either. Something had followed him. Something had already entered the village. And the sack was just the beginning. That evening, Umuahia became unusually quiet. People locked their doors earlier than usual. Mothers pulled their children inside before sunset. Even the animals sensed it, goats refused to roam, dogs whimpered and hid under raised wooden beds. Only one thing remained loud. Fear. As night settled, the wind rose, brushing through the trees like fingers searching for something missing. Papa Nwachukwu, the compound elder, ordered his children to put out the lantern and sleep. But sleep did not come to anyone. Not with the sound that echoed from the village square at exactly 12:03 a.m. A drumbeat. Slow. Steady. Heavy. Dum. 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 No festival was planned. No drummer was outside. No hand touched the leather. Yet the drums played, perfectly, like someone well-trained sat cross-legged before them. People peeped through windows. Some clutched their Bibles. Some covered their heads with wrappers. Mama Nkiru stepped out of her hut, her eyes scanning the darkness. She recognized the rhythm. It wasn't the sound of celebration. It was a summoning beat, the kind used by the old custodians when a powerful spirit wanted to pass through the village. She marched toward the square, her bare feet slapping the earth. A few brave men followed at a distance. When they arrived, they froze. The 3 village drums were floating, suspended above the ground, vibrating as if invisible hands pressed their surfaces. The air around them shimmered like heat haze. Suddenly, all the drums stopped at once. Absolute silence. Then a voice, deep, cold, and everywhere at the same time, whispered through the trees. You touched what was not yours. One man, Obiageli, attempted to run, but the ground shook violently beneath him. A strong gust of wind swept across the square, knocking people to their knees. Mama Nkiru lifted her staff. Show yourself. The wind stopped instantly. The drums dropped. A faint glow appeared near the old mango tree. At first it looked like mist, then it thickened, then a shape began to form, a tall figure covered in long black cloth that touched the ground. No face. No arms. No legs. Just a floating mass of dark fabric, gently swaying. The men behind Mama Nkiru began to shake. What do you want? She asked. The figure turned slowly. In a voice that sounded like 100 whispers layered together, it answered. Return what does not belong to any living hand. The diamonds. The sack. The strange wealth that appeared on Christmas Eve. Mama Nkiru swallowed hard. What will happen if we don't return it? The figure stretched upward, growing taller, impossibly tall. The men backed away. A coldness swept through the square, biting into their bones. And then the voice answered very softly. Then I will take what I choose. Before anyone could speak again, the figure dissolved into smoke and disappeared. The wind died. The trees stood still. Only one thing remained certain. Whatever owned that sack, whatever placed those diamonds in the village, was no longer asking. It was coming. By morning, the entire village moved like people walking inside a dream. Nobody spoke loudly. Nobody smiled. Nobody wanted to attract attention, earthly or spiritual. The story of the floating drums spread faster than harmattan fire. Mothers whispered it to each other. Fathers acted brave but refused to go far from home. And in the middle of this rising fear, Obiageli could not stop staring at the sack. She had hidden it inside an old clay pot beneath her bed, but she felt its presence every second, like it was breathing in the room with her. The diamonds no longer looked innocent. They pulsed. They glowed faintly at night. They rolled on their own whenever she touched them. Each time she tried to sleep, she heard faint scratching near the pot, like little claws trying to open it from the inside. By noon, she couldn't take it anymore. She rushed to Mama Nkiru's shrine, panting. "Mama, I want to return it. Whatever it is, I want it gone." Mama Nkiru looked at her long and hard. "It is not as simple as giving it back, my child." "Why?" "It doesn't belong to me." The old woman held her staff tightly. "That thing did not come as a gift. It came as bait." Obiageli swallowed. "Be bait for what?" "For a life. For a destiny. For a soul the spirit wants to carry away." Obiageli's body turned cold. "Whose soul?" she whispered. Mama Nkiru didn't speak immediately. Instead, her gaze shifted toward the door they both assumed was closed. It wasn't. It was slowly opening, silently, without wind. Obiageli froze. Someone, or something, stood outside. At first, it looked like a shadow. But as it stepped closer, the shape sharpened. A tall man. Wrapped in heavy Christmas red cloth from neck to feet. A broad hat covering his face. He didn't walk. He glided. Obiageli's voice cracked. "Mama, who is that?" Mama Nkiru raised her staff but did not move. The figure stopped at the threshold. It didn't breathe. It didn't blink. It just pointed one long, unnaturally thin finger straight at Obiageli. And in a voice that sounded like a faraway bell being struck underwater, it spoke. "The one who picked the sack must follow me." Obiageli stumbled backward. But the figure continued, its voice growing colder. "Midnight. At the mango tree. Come. Or I will come for you." Then the figure turned into black smoke and vanished, leaving the scent of burning cloth behind. Obiageli fell to her knees, shaking uncontrollably. Mama Nkiru gripped her shoulders. "My child, you have less than 12 hours. People avoided Obiageli's eyes when she walked past. Everyone had heard. The spirit had chosen her. Mama Nkiru kept her close, giving her bitter herbs to strengthen her mind and washing her face with cold spring water to keep fear from breaking her spirit. But nothing could stop the trembling in Obiageli's hands. Every minute felt like someone was turning sand in an hourglass. And soon, the last grain would drop. As the evening matured, her elder sister, Adaku, ran into the shrine, sweating. "Jelly! Please, don't go," she cried, grabbing her sister's arm. "Let Mama Nkiru handle it. Let the men of the village follow you. You can't face that thing alone." Obiageli shook her head. "He said I must come. If anyone else tries to follow, something worse may happen." Adaku was crying now. "You picked a sack, one sack, and now a spirit wants your life." Obiageli lowered her voice. "It wasn't just a sack. Mama Nkiru said it was bait. It knew I would touch it. It wasn't by mistake." Mama Nkiru stepped forward, her voice firm. "The spirit wants balance. Something powerful was taken from its realm. Those diamonds are not ordinary stones. They are fragments of a sealed gate, the gate that keeps creatures of the night from crossing freely. Adaku gasped. So if she doesn't return it? The gate will break, Mama Nkairu finished. And Umwahia will not survive what will crawl through. A heavy silence fell. For the first time, Obiageli found her voice steady. I will go. Because if I don't, it won't just take me. It will take the whole village. The old woman drew a circle around Obiageli with white chalk, chanting protection words under her breath. She tied a red cloth around Obiageli's wrist and placed an oil-soaked leaf in her palm. When the time comes, Mama Nkairu said quietly, hold this leaf tightly. It carries the fire of the old ones. Obiageli nodded. Obiageli exhaled slowly. Whatever is coming, she whispered, I'm ready. But as she turned to leave the shrine, a sudden whisper rose behind her. Soft. Cold. Almost human. No, you are not. She spun around. The corner of the shrine darkened. The shadows twisting. Slowly rising. As if something tall was unfolding itself from the darkness. Mama Nkairu leaped back. Adaku screamed. Obiageli's heart slammed against her chest. The shadow stretched, stretched, stretched. And then formed the same faceless figure wrapped in Christmas red cloth. It had returned. But now, it was inside the shrine. And this time, it didn't speak through smoke or wind. It simply leaned forward and whispered. Midnight is too far. I have come early. The shrine trembled. Clay bowls rattled. Calabashes rolled off shelves. The fire in the corner flickered violently as the spirit stepped fully into the room. Obiageli couldn't breathe. The figure was taller now, its red cloth dragging across the floor like something soaked in old blood. The air around it thickened, as if the room itself was struggling to hold its presence. Mama Nkairu lifted her staff, chanting quickly. But the spirit raised one long, thin finger. And the staff snapped in half without being touched. Mama Nkairu staggered back, eyes wide. That shouldn't be possible, she whispered. The spirit turned its faceless head toward her. You have delayed destiny long enough. Adaku threw herself in front of Obiageli. Leave my sister alone. She didn't know. Before she could finish, a wave of cold wind blasted her backwards, pinning her to the wall like an invisible hand. Obiageli screamed, rushing toward her, but the spirit blocked the way, the red cloth rising and falling like a storm. The one who picked the sacred stones must walk with me. Obiageli's knees weakened. She clutched the oil-soaked leaf Mama Nkairu had given her. Mama, she whispered shakily, you said the leaf carries the fire of the old ones. Will it protect me? The spirit tilted its head, as though amused. Mama Nkairu forced herself to stand in front of Obiageli again. It will, she said firmly. But only if your heart does not fail. Hold it tight. The spirit glided closer. One more step. 2. 3. Obiageli pressed the leaf to her chest. A faint warmth spread from it, soft at first, then stronger, like hot air rising from burning coal. Suddenly, the spirit stopped moving. The red cloth quivered. The room shook. Mama Nkairu's eyes widened. It is reacting, she whispered. Jelly, raise the leaf. Obiageli lifted her trembling hand. At once, the leaf burst into bright, golden flame, but did not burn her skin. Instead, the fire wrapped around her hand, swirling upward like a living stream of light. The spirit let out a deep vibrating sound, not a scream, but a warning, or rage. Adaku dropped to the floor as the invisible force holding her vanished. Obiageli tightened her grip. I don't want your diamonds, she shouted. I don't want anything that belongs to your realm. The fire from her hand grew brighter. The spirit staggered back. But only for a moment. Then its voice shifted, no longer whispering, no longer calm. It thundered. Power borrowed cannot save you. With a sudden lunge, it swept forward, its entire form expanding into a whirl of red cloth and black smoke, rushing toward Obiageli with terrifying speed. The shrine exploded with wind and dust. Mama Nkairu screamed. Adaku dove to the ground. Obiageli held the blazing leaf out. And the spirit collided with it. A deafening blast of light filled the room. For a single heartbeat, everything stopped. No wind. No sound. No movement. Then. The spirit dissolved into sparks of red smoke and vanished. Obiageli collapsed to the ground, shaking violently. Mama Nkairu grabbed her. It's not gone, she whispered. You only forced it back. Obiageli lifted her tear-filled eyes. So what happens now? Mama Nkiru's voice dropped to a trembling whisper. Now, it will come for you with everything it has. And when it returns. She looked toward the door, where darkness pooled like ink. It will not come alone. Adaku held Obiageli tightly as they hurried back to their compound after the chaos in Mama Nkiru's shrine. Obiageli's palm still burned faintly from using the sacred leaf, the warm glow pulsing like a frightened heartbeat. Mama Nkiru said it will return, Obiageli whispered. Adaku squeezed her hand, her voice fierce. Let it come. I will not let anything take you. Not while I'm alive. But she couldn't hide the fear in her eyes. Back in the compound, the entire family was awake. Their mother, weak from crying, rushed to hold Obiageli. My child, they say a spirit came for you, is it true? Obiageli buried her face in her mother's chest. Mama, it wants me because I picked the sack. The words broke their mother's strength. She slid to the ground, sobbing helplessly. Adaku knelt beside them. Obiageli will not be taken. Mama Nkiru said there is a way to fight this. Their father stood near the doorway, silent, gripping a cutlass so tightly his knuckles turned white. He had never believed in spirits, until tonight. Mama Nkiru arrived shortly after, walking fast, beads clinking around her ankles. We do not have time, she said urgently. It has gone to gather more strength. When it returns, the fire leaf may not be enough. Obiageli's voice trembled. What must I do? Mama Nkiru looked around the compound, then spoke quietly. There is only one path left. You must return the sack yourself. With your own hands. Adaku stood up sharply. No. You can't send her to that mango tree again. It is the only way, Mama Nkiru insisted. If I go, the spirit will reject it. If Adaku goes, it will reject it. The person who was touched by the stones must be the one to restore them. Obiageli felt her stomach twist. She remembered the voice. The red cloth. The cold that held her like a hand around her throat. She whispered, Mama Nkiru, will the spirit kill me there? The priestess knelt in front of her, placing a warm palm on her cheek. It will try. But I will not let it succeed. Adaku stepped forward, fire in her eyes. I am going with her. Even if I cannot return the sack, I will stand beside her. Mama Nkiru hesitated, then nodded slowly. Stay close. But do not touch the sack. Only Obiageli must carry it. The wind suddenly picked up. A strange one. Cold and heavy. Doors began to shake. The oil lamp flames bent sideways. The chickens scrambled into corners, feathers rising. Obiageli froze. Mama Nkiru, is it coming? The priestess looked up at the sky. No, not yet. She looked at Obiageli's trembling fingers. Bring the sack. Obiageli stared at the dark doorway of her hut. She felt the weight of the entire village on her shoulders. Of her family. Of Adaku. Of her own survival. She took a breath, and stepped inside to retrieve it. But the moment her hand touched the clay pot, the pot cracked. The air turned cold. And a voice whispered directly behind her ear, so close she felt the breath against her skin. "You cannot return what is already mine." Obiageli didn't move. She couldn't. The whisper behind her ear felt too real, too close, like a cold mouth brushing her skin. Her heart hammered violently. Slowly, she turned. No one was there. But the cracked clay pot was moving, inching backward on its own as though an invisible hand was pulling it. "Obiageli." Adaku's voice broke from outside. "Come out, now." Obiageli forced herself to grab the sack before it slid completely out of sight. The moment her fingers wrapped around it, a burning sensation shot up her arm, sharp, hot, and electric. She cried out. Adaku rushed in, catching her before she fell. "What happened?" Obiageli held up her hand. Her palm was glowing faintly again, only this time, the glow pulsed like a heartbeat out of rhythm. Mamankiru entered last, chanting under her breath. "It has marked her," she said urgently. "We must leave now." They hurried out into the compound. Obiageli clutched the sack tightly against her chest. "So I caused this?" she whispered. Mamankiru placed a hand on her shoulder. "No. It chose you because your spirit is strong enough to hold the stones without dying. You were not the cause, you were the target." A powerful gust of wind slammed through the compound. Children screamed in distant huts. Goats broke their ropes and ran wild. Doors swung open. Mats flew into the air. The sound of heavy drums echoed faintly from somewhere deep in the forest. Adaku's eyes widened. "The drums, they sound like they're coming from the ground." Obiageli felt the sack vibrate. Her knees buckled. "Mamankiru. I think it's trying to leave my hand." The priestess grabbed Obiageli's wrist firmly. "Hold it. Do not let go." The earth trembled again, stronger this time. A large crack tore through the soil near the mango tree at the far end of the village. Faint red light seeped out of it, glowing like fire under the ground. Adaku gasped. "It's opening from there." Mamankiru nodded grimly. "That tree is older than the village itself. Many things were buried beneath it, things men were not meant to see again." Obiageli felt tears rise to her eyes. "Mamankiru, if I go there, will I come back alive?" The priestess did not answer immediately. Then she placed both hands on Obiageli's cheeks and whispered. "I will do everything in my power to bring you back." Adaku grabbed her sister's hand. "If she's going." "I'm going." Mamankiru hesitated. "Adaku, the spirits may see you as interference. You must not touch the sack. You must not step inside the circle when the ritual begins." "I don't care," Adaku said fiercely. "I'm not leaving Obiageli alone." Mamankiru nodded slowly. "The spirit of the sack does not fight in the bush. It attacks where your bloodline rests." The spirit lowered its hand. The shadows around it shrank. And with a final whisper, dry, ancient, final, it said. "You must return what you carried. Not just the stones. The blessing that followed you home." Then. It vanished. Like smoke swallowed by darkness. The sisters ran. And this time, the ground did not hold them. They ran with everything inside them, lungs burning, tears streaming, feet stumbling, hearts racing. Because whatever was waiting at home, whatever blessing had followed them, whatever debt was still unpaid, it had already entered their compound. And it was waiting. When Adaku and Obiageli reached their compound, the gate was open. Not pushed. Not swung. Opened, wide, like someone walked in with confidence. The night was still. Too still. Obiageli gripped her sister's arm. "Sister, something entered here before us." Adaku swallowed hard, voice shaking. It's inside. They stepped in. Slowly. Carefully. And then. They heard it. A rustle. Very soft. Coming from their mother's room. The girls paused at Mama's door. Obiageli whispered. Adaku, don't open it. But she didn't need to. Because the door. The old wooden door. The one that needed 2 hands to drag. Swung open by itself. The moment they stepped in. Obiageli screamed. The sack was back. The same sack. But this time. It was on their mother's bed. Placed gently. Like an offering. But the terrifying part. It was open. And inside. The diamonds were back. Not scattered. Not thrown. Arranged like someone had counted them one by one. And in the middle of the diamonds. A heart-shaped stone glowed faintly, pulsing like it was breathing. Obiageli staggered backward. No, no, no. I returned everything. I poured them out in public, Mama Nkiru saw it. Adaku whispered, voice trembling. Obiageli, the spirit didn't want the stones. It wanted the person who opened it. Something stood behind it. A smaller figure. Womanly. Soft. Wrapped in white cloth. Face covered. The spirit spoke, its voice deep and layered. Every sack has 2 owners. The seeker and the finder. You are the finder. Then it pointed at the woman behind it. And she is the seeker. Obiageli's heart stopped. Adaku's legs weakened. Who is she? Adaku whispered hoarsely. The spirit tilted its head. The one who was meant to open the sack. But your sister opened it first. The woman behind the spirit stepped forward. Nne. My daughters. The sisters froze. That voice. That tone. That grief. It was their mother's voice. But their mother wasn't dead. Their mother wasn't missing. Their mother wasn't a spirit. Yet this woman. Sounded exactly like her. Adaku's voice cracked. Mama. The woman lifted her veil. Adaku screamed. Because the woman under the veil. Looked exactly like their mother. But younger. And dead. And perfect. And glowing like someone who died before fulfilling destiny. The spirit spoke. Before you were born, your mother's twin, the forgotten one. Died on Christmas Eve while carrying this sack. She was the true owner. The blessing was meant for her bloodline. Adaku gasped. Auntie. Neka. Mama's twin, the one nobody talks about. The spirit nodded. Yes. She has waited many years in the realm of unfinished destinies. This sack was meant to open for her lineage. But when your sister touched it first. Her shadow answered the call. The ghost twin stepped closer. Tears fell from her glowing eyes. My daughters. I did not come to harm you. I came to reclaim what was mine. So that you may live. She touched the sack. And instantly. The diamonds turned to dust. The glowing stone cracked. The sack shrank. The room shook violently. The earth outside roared. The spirit bowed before her. The ghost twin whispered. I carried the blessing. Let me carry the debt. She lifted the sack to her chest. And vanished in a burst of golden dust. Gone. Gone completely. The room became still. Silence returned. Obiageli woke with a gasp. Adaku hugged her so tightly she cried. It's over, Adaku whispered. It's over, Obiageli. She saved you. Obiageli sobbed into her shoulder. Mama returned later, confused why her daughters were crying and laughing at the same time. They didn't explain everything. Some destinies are too heavy for words. But one thing was certain. They survived the sack. Because family, living or dead, protects its own. And on that Christmas Eve, the village of Omoh learned that some blessings come with a shadow. And some sacrifices are paid in silence. Moral of the story. Sometimes, the things that look like blessings are traps in disguise. And the things we chase blindly, wealth, shortcuts, sudden miracles, can cost us more than we ever imagined. Life teaches us again and again. If something comes too easy, pray twice before touching it. Because not every gift is from God. Some are debts wrapped in glitter. And sometimes, the greatest protection you will ever have is the prayer of the family who loves you. Even those long gone. As the village returned to peace and the stars reclaimed the night sky, one truth remained unshakable. What was meant for you will reach you without fear. And what carries danger will always reveal itself before it destroys you. Adaku and Obiageli slept that night with a new understanding. That in this world, the physical is never separate from the spiritual. And as Christmas draws near, may we all walk with wisdom. May we move with discernment. And may every unseen battle be won on our behalf. Before it ever reaches our doorway. If this story touched you, taught you, or opened your eyes, don't just scroll away. Tell us in the comments. What lesson are you taking into this festive season? And please, like, share, and subscribe. So that more people can learn, more hearts can be warmed. And more families can stay protected this Christmas. Your engagement helps this story reach someone who needs it urgently. Stay safe. Stay blessed. More powerful stories are coming. Don't miss the next one. See you guys in our next chapter. Bye.